Hello everybody and welcome to week number 8 of the Quake Pro League. My name is Ketchup and as always I'm joined on the desk by the wonderful Flea. How's it going?
Doing very well, man. How about you?
Yeah, I'm doing really, really well. It was nice to be back in the studio. I know a couple of weeks ago we were meant to, but you know, we saw Zoot muscled in on our territory, but now we're back from the brink. We have another week to get through, which means we're going to have 4 more matches from EU and CIS, and then 4 more matches between the Americas. The thing about week number 8 is that things are starting to get incredibly juicy. Just to give you guys a quick recap over what the QPL is, essentially players will play on a weekly basis. There will be scheduled matches depending on where they are placed on the leaderboards, and by playing each opponent every week you gain points. Right? And obviously every map that you win will give you points. If it's a 2-1, both players get some points. If it's a 3-0, the player that wins the 3-0 gets a extra bonus points of 2, making it 8 in total, and the player that loses gets nothing. The reason that matters so much for week number 8 is because now we're really starting to look at relegation territory. We're looking at players that are doing really well in the Challenger League, notable players like Nick, Cypher, CNZ that all have a really, really good position to do well and be present at the Luca LAN coming up in a few weeks' time. And if you're in the QPL, there are some players here that have to worry about it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely, because let us not forget about the bottom 2 players in each region. They are actually at risk of being relegated at the end of this stage.
They are indeed. I've actually been told we should have the leaderboard placement so we can see where the players currently are. And that is going to be the ever so lasting storyline of not only this week, but the remaining weeks that we have. We have week number 9 and then we have 10 to finish things off before we go into Luca. But there are some players out there that have nothing to worry about. Some of the notable names being, Rafa, Kilson, Dahang, Cooler, Razy, Venger. They're all in a fantastic position where for them it's actually more about trying to establish dominance and more of a number 1 position. But on the opposite end, we're going to go into this a little bit extra as we go into the region-specific ranking. There are players that have their eyes on the relegation radar. There are players such as Garpy, Avec, Sib and Brick that they don't have a lot of points, and there's really no easy way of saying that. Everyone here is of a super high level. That's why they're in the Pro League in the first place, for crying out loud. But that said, when it's a tournament of champions, so many players in this world ranking have actually won not only Quake Champions tournaments in their history, but other Quakes as well. And, this really is the best of the best, Flea.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all of these players, they're here for a reason. They are some of the best Quakers in the entire world, and they are fighting to stay alive, really, in the Quake Pro League as we move on. And looking at the lower end of the bracket, as you said, there are indeed quite a few players. Looking at Sib, Brick, Effortless, Garpy, Sparty, that are quite at risk of being relegated at the end of the stage.
Of course, and also worth mentioning, there is a little bit of a change in this world ranking. Some of you more eagle-eyed viewers will notice that the Stage 1 records and the QuakeCon records, they've actually been separated, and that's actually why the world ranking might be a little bit different to what you can see. As you can see, the wins and losses from QuakeCon are on the left, and the wins and losses from this weekly Season 1, the Stage 1, as it were, are on the right-hand side. With that in mind, let's go into the regional rankings to see whether players are actually ranking up in regards to the weekly streams. Avec may have been above Sparty on the world, but he certainly isn't in the weekly rankings.
Yeah, because this is the bracket, or the ranking rather, that really does matter, because the top 2 of each region, they don't just go ahead, but they automatically qualify for the quarterfinals of the next major LAN in Lucca, Italy. Meanwhile, the bottom 2, well, they'll have to play the top 2 challengers from their respective region, and they might be leaving the Quake Pro League. And so in particular, we're seeing Garpy at the bottom with 8 points in the EU and CIS scene, but then we've also got Avec, and I think that's a player that a lot of people were really expecting to do a whole lot better than this.
Absolutely, it's definitely taking a lot of people by surprise that he is where he is. He's held in such high esteem for Quake Champions, but I mean there are players sort of within this area where anything is possible. Because of the way qualifying points work. If you, in theory, were to 3-0 everyone and you get 8 points for the remaining weeks, that being said, if you don't have a bye week, there are some players, obviously we'll get into the schedule, that do have bye weeks as each week goes on. Garpy, in theory, could 3-0 everybody, and then maybe he's out of relegation.
Yeah.
The thing about that is, we're in week 8, right? The players are here for a reason, and if they had the means to get that massive injection of points, surely they would have demonstrated that by now.
Yeah, that's of course the risk. And just to go further on what you just said, this is week 8, meaning that today included, there's 3 more weeks of Quake, meaning that in total, 8 points theoretically a week. Each and every one of these players could still earn 24 points. So keep that in mind when you're looking at these rankings and trying to determine who might end up where.
Absolutely, and we've been talking about this constantly. We have so much more to talk about, but the show's going to be going on. We have some more stuff to demonstrate. I believe we have the schedule coming up soon as well. There it is! Thank you very much. Match number 1 is going to be Avec versus Garpy, and as those leaderboards suggested, a very pivotal week for both of these players. Before we talk about the matches, though, we always notice there are players wondering what the numbers mean, and it's always worth reminding you lovely people at home. Essentially, it is the expert's prediction over how one-sided or how they think in general the maps will actually go. And the numbers are the frag differences. You know, -3 to +3 means there is projected to be a 3 frag difference on map 1 between Avec and Garpy. The thing is, the minus symbol is actually the player that has the projected advantage. Yeah. It's essentially, the way I look at it is, the bigger the number, the more distinct. You know, Kilson versus Base, for example, experts predict that Kilson's going to take that map pretty one-sidedly.
Yeah, that sure looks to be the case. Also, before we go into the specifics of the other matches, it's very important and interesting to point out that today every single matchup is a first timer, so we have not seen any of these players go up against one another since QuakeCon. We very often have seen players, for example Rafa and The Hang, they've already gone up against each other twice in the online segment, but this week every single match has not happened since QuakeCon. So these are players that don't have that much experience playing against each other, or at least not in the utmost competitive setting, and so it could be some very interesting results that we're looking at.
And in a week where points matter more than ever because everyone's trying to avoid the all-important relegation, the fact that some of these players haven't played against each other at all is going to make a pretty big difference. And, you know, Toxic versus Ron is going to be our next match, Kilson versus Base, and then finally, the real, you know, prize match of this portion, I suppose, Wenger and Cooler. Wenger trying to see if he can remain that undefeated streak.
Yep. Only 2 players in the league that are currently still undefeated, and those are Wenger, Kid Bellissimo from Italy, and on the other side of the world we've got, of course, Rafa from the United States.
I think it's interesting for me, and I'm sure it's interesting for the rest of you, to kind of just see who's going to rule the roost. Because right now, for me, Wenger is like the #1 player to watch. Yep. Rafa being a player that's on everyone's radar, like that's a given. He's going to be there because he's been doing so well in dual tournaments. Even before QPL, you know, Rafa was the player that pretty much everyone had projected to win QuakeCon. Obviously, that didn't happen. That grand finals was between Cooler and Kilson, of which Kilson took that very one-sidedly, making him the current champ. Absolutely. But I'm just always happy to see the grind of a young player that, you know, duel is their passion. Wenger really kind of embodies the new generation of Quake, where, you know, he is one of the younger players in the scene. He grew up with Quake. You know, it's very much a, you know, your rivals, your idols become your rivals is the term. And I think that's so apparent in Quake more than anything, because there are so many young players that watched, like, you know, the Toxics and the Coolers, and now here they are many years later actually taking them head on, and in some cases beating them in bracket. It's got to be quite a nice feeling if you're that kind of player.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And talking about those rivalries, I think we're really starting to see some interesting storylines develop between some of these players, because, for example, if we look at Cooler versus Kilson, it looks like Kilson is essentially Cooler's kryptonite. Every single time they've gone up against each other since QuakeCon, and even in the QuakeCon finals, it has been a devastating victory for Kilson. But then meanwhile, on the other hand, Kilson has played Wenger twice in the online segment, and he lost to Wenger both times in a row. So we're really starting to see some players maybe exploiting their opponent's weaknesses and really getting into their head.
Benefit of a weekly broadcast means it's time to download the all-important information, isn't it? Well, I think we have a show to get started, and our match number 1 is going to be Avec versus Garpy. Starting off with Avec, let's have a chat about this guy. You know, we talked about him at pretty great length at the very beginning because the leaderboard, it's very important at this stage that the players that are kind of within relegation, remember, bottom 2 are the players that face that judgment of the players coming up from Challenger. Avic's going to essentially do everything he can to avoid that situation. But it's like we said, of all the players that you would kind of, if there was a fantasy bracket, all the players you would expect to be bottom 2, Avec is like one of the last players you would have put there.
Yeah. And at QuakeCon, I mean, his showing wasn't that strong, but overall he really wasn't near the bottom of the bracket at all. And of course, Avik, it is one of the legends of Quake, coining the term Avik aggression way back in the day as an extremely aggressive forward player that just never takes his foot off the pedal and just keeps pushing it all the way through and through. But so far we haven't really been able or to see him adapt the way he should have.
Well, look, part of me will always feel that Quake Champions, I mean, it's a new game for that, right? You know, every Quake that existed had a certain way that you would approach it, a certain way that you would play it. It's why I think when Quake Champions first came out, some players you think would do sick because of their legacy, it took them a while to find their feet and realize, right, we're playing Quake Champions now, maybe we have to adapt, which is why on the flip side, players like Razy were able to kind of, hit the ground running because they went into it with a, brand new game mindset, which not everyone did. Up next, though, Garpy. Garpy is... I mean, I'm always going to be a little bit biased as a UK boy, but fundamentally, he's not had an amazing QPL. You can see absolute moments of greatness, and we saw it. This clip was from week number 1.
Yeah.
He had some absolutely fantastic moments that really let you know that this guy knows how to play arena FPS. But when it comes to Quake Champions, I feel like week after week, he is starting to get outclassed, Flea.
That's absolutely the case, because so far the only match he's won has been against Sparty in the very first week of the online section of the Quake Pro League. And interestingly enough, the only player that Avik has managed to beat has also been Sparty, but he managed to beat him actually twice in a row. So both of these players, their only victory has been against Sparty. So no matter who wins, no matter who loses, there is going to be some changes made there.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, in terms of what we predict results-wise, if you were to give me anything outside of QPL, I probably would have projected Avik to win this. But because we've had, I suppose, the benefit of these weekly streams where now we can really start to see how everyone's shaping up, what do we think is going to happen? Do we think Avik has the edge here, even with the current circumstances?
I still think Avik has the edge. I think he'll probably take it 2-1.
I think I would definitely sort of more lean towards you with 2-1. That said, he needs a 3-0.
Oh, yeah.
If we're in a position where players are trying to avoid that bottom territory as much as possible, I almost feel like even if you were to win the first 2 maps, you can't rest up. You can't kind of like breathe that sigh of relief that perhaps players would have achieved at the very beginning of QPR, where it's, all right, cool, I've got the first win, and maybe, we've seen a couple of final maps go within the previous weeks where it almost feels like one of the players that's got the 2-0 hasn't quite put 100% of their focus into the final map, and they'll lose by like a smidge, a tiny amount of frags, where if they were playing their A game, maybe would have seen a 3-0 again. You don't have room for that at all.
No,
you have to go in hard and fast all 3 maps, because you need to avoid bottom 2 as much as you can.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we saw it just last week how much a 3-0 victory does for you, because we saw Tox actually beat Avik very convincingly, and immediately he shot up by 8 points, getting completely out of the danger zone and putting a significant distance between himself and some of his other competitors. So getting those 3-0s, those extra 2 points you get for going undefeated, they are becoming so important this late into the tournament.
For sure, and we spent weeks and weeks saying that we were quite concerned over Tox's shape, and then 1-3-0 can sort of change that shift of power, as it were. Getting into the map soon. Thanks for sticking with us so far. For those that just joined us, remember, this is week number 8 of that all-important Quake Pro League. We have our first match coming up, and it's map-wise, Veil of Nath. Be number 1, Blood Covenant up next, and Blood Run finally. One of the big things that I'm actually kind of noticing here from Garpy, you don't really see him play Scalebearer all that often. I know he doesn't really stream a lot of Quake, so sometimes it's kind of hard to get that information, but it doesn't really strike me as one of the champions he's been running recently, so I guess Blood Run map specific. Yeah,
absolutely. Blood Run is of course one of the best maps to run Scale on. There's so many resources, so many of those tight, narrow corridors and choke points that you can really just bulldoze through when you're using your scalability, or even use it to get away when you've got the lead. We've seen that time and time again. And other than that, Veil of Nav is going to be a lot about the totems, a lot about the turrets. We've got Ison, we've got Galena, and then on Blood Covenant we've got Visor going up against Doomslayer. So Garpy will keep the mobility to himself right there, of course, having that double jump, very useful to get around the map, whereas Avik is going for the piercing side, getting that extra information on his opponent.
I feel like map number 1 is such a perfect example of Veil of Nath. You've got 2 champions that ultimately they're going to want to sit on the top, or they're going to want to use those teleporters and then just throw something on the floor. That's just generally what both the players want to do, isn't it? You've got the utility of the health with the totems, and then Ison's turret is, I mean, it's a pretty big pain in the backside at a high level, and that's clearly why the champion gets selected. But Veil, it's going to be interesting to see how this one goes. Because, Garpy, He's kind of fallen a little bit victim to Galena himself in the past. I know obviously he's using this champion, so it's obviously a little bit different there. But truly, when it comes to Garpy's performance in Week 8, it's kind of hard to gauge. I had a lot of confidence at the very beginning of the Pro League, but as the weeks are progressing, I kind of just feel like he's not quite able to reach the shape he was once in, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, he got off to a really good start in that infamous match against Sparty, but ever since it feels like it's kind of been slipping just out of his reach, and maybe this will be the day that he manages to turn it around, because Avik hasn't been doing so well himself, losing 3-0 just last week, so maybe he isn't feeling it himself either.
Yeah, that's the I guess the elephant in the room for this first match in particular, is that there are two players that don't really seem to be holding up the same, I suppose, standard that we're familiar with them. And obviously, we don't want to come across as disrespectful in that way. It's just the way things have been going in the QPL. Sorry to any Avik and Garpy fans out there, but we have weeks left to go. Yep. And these are the important factors to try and get those potentially really 3-0s. That's what we're going to keep our eyes on.
Yeah.
This first map. Depending on how it goes, maybe we're going to get a little bit of that insight, but to start with, we're going to be checking out some Garpy and see how he approaches this here.
Yeah, he's immediately going to get the railgun of the start, but now he seems to be stuck in this area, and immediately Avik playing extremely aggressively, just bridging the gap with the LG, with the rockets. Garpy landing a good rail that is going to buy him some time, and another one he might actually be able to jump down, pounds on his opponent, but he's going to play it safe and look for some more damage here. Avik just barely clinging on, returning the rail at the end there, and both players really low.
Good from Garpy to actually keep the rail out in that situation. He knows that at that stage he was trying to head him off. He knows that Avik was weak, but with the amount of pickups that were nearby, not weak enough that the machine gun would have finished the job. So that was a nice little bit of weapon optimization. That said, Avik has done a wonderful job of actually surviving. He got the Mega himself as well.
Yep.
Not too much of a delay in between the Heavy and Mega, in fact, so interesting to see Garpy probably be trying to control this Heavy just a little bit. He's trying to get that information too. Just listen out and see what the first objective should be in this situation.
Yeah, and he also finally managed to get himself a rocket launcher to work with, going up the bounce pad, because he knows that getting that top position is so important on a vertical map like Vale, but it doesn't look like he's actually going to contest for Mega. He sees that there's just not enough time for him to safely make it over to that other major item, and so the fight will be happening right here at Power Up. Garpy does have that totem at the ready, will be using that to get some health back as he moves back around, and here we're gonna go see another fight. Rockets not doing all that much damage coming out of Garpy though, and that will be Avik getting away with the win.
Looks a bit more defensive play there from Garpy, right? Those rockets were coming out just to try and pepper some damage. If he got one direct or something significant, maybe it was an opportunity to go in, but this is Garpy we're talking about. He's known to make magic things happen. Yep. At this stage, he's been able to at least strong-arm himself onto the Mega. Pretty short on the armor department though, and I think Avik will be keeping that one in mind. Here come the rails, and Garpy not in an amazing position, especially now that turret's been thrown down. And he's already dead. There it is.
I really like what I'm seeing out of Avik, because he has been living up to that Avik aggression name. He's going to find Garpy right off the bat. The LG is murderous, and down goes Garpy. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Avik has really been applying the pressure, sometimes even foregoing the item, at least temporarily, just so he can land another rail on his opponent.
I think on the opposite end too, Garpy unable to hit some pretty significant rockets. And normally from that close range, it was nice positioning there from Avik, not being super close range, and at a range where the splash would be nice and significant. So
yep.
A 2-0 so far, only 2.5 minutes passed. There's plenty of time to make something happen, but it's kind of like what you point out, Avik, he seems to just not really be giving Garpy room to breathe. You know, it's pretty common to know where Garpy's going to be at the moment. Right now, obviously, he's trying to get some information, but it feels like he's quite content just leaving Garpy on almost like the end of a leash, as it were.
Yeah, Avik, is he going to go to the teleporter? He will take a little bit of damage there, and it's so important for Avik that he stays on top of those totems, because the moment that Garpy has 3 of them on the map, he's essentially got a portable Mega in his pocket, and he can heal himself up so consistently and so eagerly that Avik really needs to keep destroying them. Rockets are being exchanged. Avik is taking up positioning. Great defensive rockets, 200 damage to the face, looking for the rail on the exit of the teleporter, but Garpy smart enough not to pursue.
Not only that, but it's a frustrating couple of rockets to get hit by. Garpy finally feels like it's moment to make something happen, and then, you know, count it up, do the math. 200, oh, misses the rail. That would have been such an important rail to land just to keep Avik from being able to kind of just run freely around this map. And it's unfortunate for Garpy, forced to retreat and kind of no better off than when he started.
Yeah, exactly. And right now we're seeing a bit more of a delay between the two major items, around 5 seconds between Heavy and Mega, so that might enable one of the players to actually set up a consistent rotation and get both. Avik taking a lot of damage there, but still making a move onto Heavy will be his, but Mega, that looks like it'll be going to Garpy instead.
He's going to set up shop with another turret, just in case. Not a huge amount of damage on those rockets, and he misses the rail. This might be the opening that Garpy's looking for. He has swapped to the rocket, though, just try and be a little bit safer. If he misses these rails, he's going to take some damage, but finally lands the mark, but not without taking a ton of damage in return. And is this even going to be potential for a refrag for Avik?
Yeah, luckily for him, there's quite a few resources available to him, so he is stacking up quite nicely. In comes Avik. That's a lot of damage with the heavy nail gun. Garpy will be taking heavy and has to give up Mega. So Avik does manage to avoid being caught out in a very out of control position and is immediately back in fighting shape. But unfortunately for him, knocking his opponent down that low didn't do much for him. Look at the rockets though. Avik, so much damage, 16 points of health. Garpy, can he get out?
Dangerous.
Does look like he will, yeah.
It's a dangerous position for Garpy too. Even with these pickups around, it's always quite scary when you know Avik, he's pushing as far forward as possible. Fortunately, didn't overstep his mark a little bit, so he's not going to put himself in harm's way. He does still have a lead. It's a tiny lead, but it is a lead all the same.
Yep.
But we'll see what Garpy does to recover now.
Yeah, because Garpy has got to be careful right now. Avik essentially has full control, and that is exactly how you deal with that. Play the plus back game, be passive, don't just chase your opponent around, but land those defensive, tactical rails to keep your opponent at bay. And now Garpy is looking for an opportunity to maybe steal a Mega Health or do a lot of damage on Heavy.
Absolutely wonderful rocket. Not necessarily for the damage, but to just push Avik away, forcing it where if you're going to try and jump back and take the heavy, it'll be a death sentence. Here comes Garpy now. He's trying to fight back. He has taken a lot of damage. Misses the rail. That's a real sucker. And also the fact that he's just run out of rockets.
Yeah. Yeah, Garpy has to get some of that ammo back. Is going to look for rockets again. No dot. Rail will miss. 5 seconds till the heavy spawns. Garpy, is he going to be making a move on that? He does have a slight stack advantage over Avik, but Avik has the positional advantage. Going up the bounce pad, this could be a huge! That's an excellent trap. Garpy knows it the moment he sees that LG come around the corner that it's the end.
I almost feel like Garpy knew that was a mistake before he even jumped into it. But by that point, it was too little too late. There's definitely a reason players only go up there when they know the kill is guaranteed. Here comes on the fight, but caught with his pants down as here comes Garpy. Gets a little bit of acid damage to boot. Not that it matters with the rocket damage coming through. Nice swap to the rocket. Avik gets a nice rail, but it's not going to be anywhere near enough. And just like that, it's 3 frags to 3.
Yeah.
That was a really good turnaround, actually. Garpy catching him just in the right place. And importantly, making those rockets count too.
Yeah, and look at the tri-bolt coming out of Avik right now. He has taken heavy and he's just going to push in with the LG mercilessly. And he will take down Garpy. 1 frag in the lead once again for the Polish player, and he gets a good read of the spawn, but can't deny Garpy the rockets though.
Yeah, it really seemed like in that fight that rail was not the right option, even though it hit its mark. You have to face the downtime in between rail shots all the same, even if you landed it. So that was just a free kill there for Avik all the same. And 5 to 3. Yes. Sad to see, because it was such a good avenue for Garpy to get back into it, and that one mismanaged fight. Here comes some wonderful rockets.
Oh my god.
And the turret just to keep him even further away.
I think that was 45 turret damage just out of nowhere, completely free for Avik. And this is a crucial stage for Garpy right now, because there's 2.5 minutes left on the clock, and he's 2 frags down, perfectly doable. But if he gives up anything more at this point, it's going to be very tricky for him to get back.
And even rails like that, the moment Garpy gets tagged, it forces him to go into the less desirable locations to try and get that stack back up. And it's going to take longer too, and that's time that he doesn't have at this situation.
Yeah, of course, every rail you take, that's around 5 to 10 seconds that you have to spend stacking up again, if the resources are even available to you. And when you're already down on the clock, well, that's precious time you're losing. Excellent rocket, though, coming out of Garpy right there. Avik will be the one who keeps control of the major item, so we might see a fight at the heavy.
2 minutes on the clock, it's going to demand perfection here from Garpy. Avik gets some nice airborne rocket into the LG combo, and Garpy can't even land bonus splash damage, and that could very well be the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
From that one, Garpy wasn't able to quite take those fights with 2 hands. getting some damage now, but Avik, he's not going to make it easy for him to re-pick this up, especially seeing as the Mega is just about to spawn. And Avik actually opting to go for a bit of denial instead of getting the Mega, knowing he has Mega to retreat to. I really like that choice.
Yeah, he did the same with Heavy when he got his previous kill. He just essentially left it up and decided to chase Garpy into that rail room, and that's of course that infamous Avik aggression that we're seeing. He doesn't just want to content himself with staying in control of the major items, but he wants to essentially secure his win. Absolutely! Oh, this is a good push from Garpy though. The rockets need to hit. So far, decent amount of damage being exchanged, and actually Avik screaming for help when Garpy resumes control.
And Garpy's going to have no choice but to be as aggressive as physically possible. We have 1 minute left, well, less than at this stage, and 3 frags to pick up. So it's a pretty impossible task at this point if Avik just plays defensively and doesn't make it easy. In a bit of a tricky situation right now, though. He knows that Garpy can just kind of sit there and listen out for where he is. We are going to see 1 frag. But is it going to be the beginning of a comeback? He's in a great position. Here comes the Heavy too, and he's just clocked him. He knows where he is.
Yep, 40 seconds. Still definitely possible. Garpy chasing, but he needs to be careful for those rails, though. Oh,
missed shot.
Yeah, that's excellent. He's just got to go for it right now. He can't delay this any longer. He needs a frag right here, right now, and he will get it. 15 seconds to go. He needs to find him right now just to tie things up, and I think he's got a pretty good idea of where his opponent is. Oh, the damage actually coming out of the rocket.
That's data right there. He has 10 seconds, but wonderful use of the LG. Avik knows that if Garpy's going to be coming from down there, he's going to be strafe jumping, he's going to be coming through a teleporter, and what a weapon to just push him as far away as possible. That last minute change was so intelligent. Well played. Absolutely there from Avik.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he had perfect position. He knows, of course, that if Garpy is going to try and chase him, even if your rocket jumps up, you've got the LG. You're just going to knock him right back down. And if he does anything else, it's either going to be too late or he has to go through the teleporter and up another bounce pad to get to you. So that's such a powerful position. And Avik essentially had everything on lockdown.
It was a level of clutchness too, because when you're 1 frag away from it being evened and then going into like, you know, a sudden death and then, oh no, 1 more frag's going to do it. What happened? I was winning for 95% of this map.
Yep.
A lot of players in that position, I assume, would probably crumble. And that level of, I think, just focus to say, right, no, let's keep position and, you know, keep the LG out for when he comes to a teleport or wherever it may be. That was a calculated decision to make at the very end. And it was what won him the game.
Yeah.
And most players, maybe in the spur of the moment, they would have forgotten about that.
Very true, and as we were discussing earlier as well, I really like Avik, his pressure that he's been applying so consistently throughout this entire matchup. We're going to see it again in the highlights right now, but he just didn't let go, and he sometimes forewent the items for at least some time just to apply the pressure, chase down his opponent, and get additional frags, even though he could have just stayed on the item. Look, right here, he could have just stayed on Heavy that's up behind him, but nope, he's going to chase down Garpy and get another frag for him.
But it was the final moments, you know, those pivotal moments where Garpy, he was able to, you know, to give him his dues. He was able to make it as close as it was, but at the end of the day, it was just that final choice, right? And that was just nothing you can say about that. Well played to Avik. That's going to be map 1 done and dusted, and now we're going into map number 2.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of what we expected in general for this matchup between Avik and Garpy. It's that it's going to be close, right? Probably not a 3-0, but in the end, Avik does seem to be just a little bit stronger, a bit more consistent, some better plays, hitting more of the important shots, and Garpy so far not being able to really catch up.
So there's going to be an automatic different change of pace here, as now it's going to be Blood Covenant as map number 2. It should be Visor and Doomslayer as the pickups. If memory serves me right, yeah, I do suffer from probably the worst memory in the world, but Visor for Avik and then Doom for Garpy.
You even have the picks in front of you.
But I didn't look at it. I tried to. I looked at the map and I was like, no, I remember this. I'm going to just roll with it. I'm going to just roll with it.
And correct you were.
Fundamentally, though, I think that, you know, Garpy, he just wants that maneuverability.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've said this since Doom even existed, you know, 2 years ago. That he just fits a map like Blood Covenant like a glove. The same way he fits a map like Awoken. That double jump makes such a massive difference to just how much control you can establish and how much time you can save to move around. But then you have the utility of just piercing sight. And, you know, Avik, he's been already establishing a nice layer of control and aggression. Now you've got that, you know, that piercing sight as an addition to it. Should be pretty useful, but we'll see what happens here now. Starting things off, Garpy.
Garpy getting Mega and LG pushed down immediately. Is he going to chase this? He knows his opponent doesn't have LG. Avik landing a nice mid-air rocket, though Garpy chasing with the Tribolt, but is in the end going to abandon the chase and get Railgun instead. Oh, this is a pretty good catch. Can he land the final shot? Avik is railable. He knows exactly where he is and he will find it.
And there's the immediate combo into the Berserk as well. I think he actually put a lot of faith in the fact that Rail was going to hit. Save the time, Berserk mode speed straight into the Mega. And he's got a pretty decent spawn as well. Can't really push it too heavily though. Granted, yes, it's a fresh stack, but it is an LG. Nice combo into Rocket. Rocket Rail, two-piece.
Yep.
And now that double jump, allowing him to be so much more aggressive. And Avek, he knows this is the matchup he's playing. He had his eyes set on it, ready for the double jump that comes
Oh!
through. Combo into Rail again. Garpy looking significantly better in map number 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe the Rail is what's going to end up winning him this map, because that's not a weapon that you tend to use that much on Veil. Of course, there's some situations in which you can use it very effectively, but overall, Blood Covenant that we're looking at right now is a very Rail-heavy map, so who knows, maybe that might end up favoring Garpy.
Now Garpy's looking for that initial Rail once more. Rockets just in case, and I like the fact he's actually keeping his Rocket out, just in case he comes around the corner. Not putting too much faith in the Rail. Very easy to get caught with your pants down when you've got a Rail out here.
Oh yeah. Because even if, like you said earlier, even if you do end up hitting the shot, it's so long, that restart time, that downtime before you can shoot again with any other weapon, that if your opponent closes the gap with LG or rockets, you're in a very bad position. Garpy will secure himself the heavy, and he's got a pretty nice rotation going on right now between both major items.
Yeah, didn't necessarily need to take the Mega to time the Mega. He knows Avek's there, and he can do the maths. He knows when he's probably picked it up. So as long as he's got that rough number in his head and he times the heavy, he's in a good position to actually keep a decent amount of stack. And as long as he's hitting his shots like he has been so far, obviously don't want to commentators curse it, but here comes another Rail.
Yeah.
And that, if anything, just makes Avek a little bit nervous about trying to push him for this Mega. It's why he's given it up, and maybe he's now trying to swap it round and go for the heavy instead.
Yeah, and this is going to be difficult for Garpy because he did not leave a lot of time between the two major items whatsoever, and it actually allows Avek to steal one of the two away from him, and stacks at this point are very comparable. Garpy, looking for his opponent, doesn't really know where he is at all, but of course Avek will, hearing those rockets being fired across the map.
And as you can see on the top of the screen, Piercing Sight was activated at the same time, so Avek has all the information he knows about the Mega. Garpy, obviously it's ran out now though, so he has to do a little bit of his own. But as he's running away now, catches him towards the Mega.
Yeah.
Garpy's looking to get some more bonus damage. He's hitting some really important rails because it's just keeping Avek behind, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's what I said at the very start. The Rail might be the deciding factor here, and so far it's absolutely been all about Garpy. He's been landing the shots, he's been positioning himself so excellently and finding those angles that even when Avek manages to steal an item, he just says, nope, gone.
Puts on a lot of pressure if you're Garpy though, doesn't it?
Yep.
To maintain consistency. I know it's, I suppose, easier said than done to go, man, just keep hitting every rail. But fundamentally, it's... but now he's missing a couple of shots, giving Avek a little bit of opportunity to escape. That's now 3 misses in a row, and because of that, Avek's now getting a little bit more confident. He's saying, well, if you're going to miss these shots, now I'm going to try and pepper out some of that rocket damage.
Yep.
Maybe I can do some of your stack. Maybe fight for one of these items that you just, right now, seem to be just bullying your way into. He's hit another shot as well. And like a light switch, I feel like the momentum has temporarily been flipped a bit. Garpy always going to have the advantage though, as he's sitting on a frag lead. But actually a lot of his shots, that rocket was the first time a shot's landed in about 6 shots.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a
nice.
good shot from Avek, indeed. Garpy will be able to take heavy, but ultimately doesn't get much out of it at all. He's still just on that base 100-100 stack, and Avek has got the better positioning at the moment, knows the exact timing of Mega and heavy as well, and will already be making his way over to that health side of the map, so he can set up for the next cycle.
Now we might be on a more open spaced map in Blood Covenant, but let's not forget it is the wall hack, the Piercing Sight. Visor is notoriously hard to run away from when he knows where you are every 40 seconds, but at the same time, if Garpy wants to play this sort of slow retreating game, sometimes he's retreating down into the catacombs. Quite risky to be down there. There's not a lot of pickups you can take either. That's why Garpy, if he's trying to be defensive, at least try and maintain as much as he can. This might be a free pickup frag. I'm not really sure what he can do to get out of this situation. Oh my word. Garpy, are you on borrowed time?
He sure
he goes in for the
seems to
small
be.
pickups. I don't know if that was a bit too predictable.
Avek, how did he not close
don't
that
know.
frag out? Garpy was down to 35 points of health, 0 armor, and Avek just let him kind of hobble away. Jump left, jump right, and off he went. But right now, Avek, he wants this frag. He's hungry for it. Garpy, not in a very good position right now, but Avek, I think, overread him right there. Tried to cut him off at the bottom side of the map, but Garpy is just staying on top. And lands that rail too. And now he can make a move on Mega. Here we go. He's going to go up the bounce pad and immediately going to press on, get that positioning. No?
No, he was listening to the footsteps, not necessarily to steal Vega, but to just, keep him behind.
Yeah.
Now if Avek's behind with no armor, it's going to be a little bit easier now for Garpy to fight for that heavy. And he was ready for it, he's ready for Avek to try and sprint his way down, but he's trying to hit that entry rail first, because at the end of the day, you don't want to get caught right here with those rails landing, because now he's taken the heavy, but he's almost going to die. Actually, once more, there's no eagerness here for Avek to just finish it.
Nope.
I'm trying to re-establish a bit more of the pickups and keep him behind. That rocket was phenomenal.
What an excellent prediction shot indeed. And at this point, there's 4 minutes left. Garpy is true frags in the lead, and Avek is starting to hit some more of his shots, but it's still Garpy who's keeping his opponent down and not letting him basically have any control over the map, not giving him any breathing room whatsoever.
In some of these situations too, I really like how Garpy is like avoiding the temptation to pop Berserk just to try and get out of there.
Yeah.
Because there are a fair few situations here where Garpy was like a little burst of speed to get around a corner might have actually helped, but it's not like one of those abilities, cancelling it's not really something you're able to do the same way you can with some of the other abilities. So stuck in that melee only time period is going to be just free rails or free LG or whatever it may be.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Avek has been using his ability very generously. Almost whenever he has that piercing sight at the ready, he pops it right away just to give himself that information.
Oh, yes.
That rocket jump, both players just changing positions right there. And that's going to work out for Garpy, who manages to still hang on to his 2-frag lead. Heavy will be going to Avek, and it looks like he'll be able to pick up Mega as well.
I absolutely love the fact that Garpy hasn't kind of, just sort of run off with his tail between his legs in terms of defensive play. He's been maintaining a defensive stance, but he's been very, very irritating with these shots that he's been picking, and he has to put himself in the range and position to hit those shots, right? He is consistently just fighting Avek off of these pickups that would otherwise give him a situation. What a good rocket too.
Yeah.
But Garpy, no slouch. He's going to go for his defensive rockets in return. 10 seconds. Might feel like a bit of a lifetime if he's waiting for Mega in this situation. Oh, the rail, but it's unreturned.
Oh,
Avek,
and again.
2 unreturned. Can he even fight for Mega in this situation? Jumping down in towards that light health. I'm not sure if that might be a little bit too much. Avek, not a lot of options to retreat here. Garpy looking to cut him off. Hits some entry damage. He knows he's going to be weak. And not only weak, but too weak to fight for the heavy. The control stays in Garpy's favor.
That absolutely could have been a pretty easy frag for Garpy, even though Avek was just holding on to control for so long. It's the rails, they're really making the difference. And right now, Avek, he's got a tall order in front of him. 2 minutes left on the clock and 2 frags to pick up. So he will be able to secure himself the Mega health, but if Garpy keeps landing those shots and playing this very clever positional game where he just keeps the advantage on his positioning, is going to be so difficult for Avek to really do anything. That's a nice little string of tribal damage though, but he's gonna need a lot more than that.
And he hasn't got perfect timing perhaps on the heavy there, or just running around until it spawned, had a rough number in his head. It wastes a lot of time, and we always come back to it this late into a map that kind of extra 3 seconds you're taking to wait for heavy, you might want those 3 seconds a little bit later. So we'll see if Avek has the means to really bring this one back. We are looming on that 1 minute warning. And it's not even as simple as just getting that frag to try and come back here. It's trying to stop this momentum that Garpy's been sitting on. You have to like really stop this machine that's just been running around and hitting every rail before you get one of these, important pickups. And he's been taking the fights really well too. Like Avek, he has to go in, of course.
Yep. And look at that, this is his second fakey rocket jump. He's been doing that earlier as well. And essentially what he's trying to do is give his opponent the impression that he's rocket jumping, but actually he's not moving at all. There we go. That's such an important rail. That might give him another opportunity at winning this map still, but things need to happen fast. I think he might have just spotted Garpy right there. He's not even going to go for heavy. Of course, he shouldn't either. And he's going to look to chase, but he didn't notice Garpy at all right there. Garpy was up on the rafters right there, shooting some rockets down. But ultimately, Avek, 18 seconds left, 2 frags. Is this even possible?
I don't think so anymore, because he hasn't even remotely found him yet. And he has to take a fight. Garpy's going to have the spawn as well. And that's game over. And dare I say, a very, very impressive map there from Garpy.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
The old man still got it.
I mean, he played this to perfection. First, his rails. We said it at the very start, could be so important on this map, and indeed they were. If we take a quick look at the scores right there, 408, 498, so that's a lot of damage. Both players, most of the damage done with the railgun. If you look, 65% railgun accuracy coming out of Garpy. That's the kind of stuff that decides these maps, because every single time your opponent picks up an item, you just knock it right back off. and every time they try and rush you, you just say no, and you push them right back with one perfectly aimed shot.
And Avec, he's well known for being aggressive, but he's not aggressive to the point where he's not thinking about it. He'll go in if he knows the time is right, or if he has a situation to maybe get a frag. And a lot of those positions where, we've now been able to establish some stack, we've got the Mega or we've got the Heavy, maybe we have them both together. But as long as you're getting hit by those defensive rails, your sort of risk calculation, you always go into a fight thinking, how much damage am I likely to take here and how much can I tank? The moment you get hit by those rails or two that Garpy is consistently landing, it's like, well, I can't really take this fight anymore. And then you have to wait for an entire new rotation before I think you feel confident enough in your stack to try and take it again. But it just felt like almost every time Garpy was there with the rail to just shut it down completely. And a 2-0 over the course of 10 minutes against a Visor as well, who knows where you are every 40 seconds, that's not easy to do.
Oh yeah, that's the second part that I think was really important. First, the rail. Secondly, the positioning. Garpy played such a clever game, avoiding his opponent, just landing and lining up the shots perfectly. And then in the end, I don't even know how Avec missed him, because I felt like you could see little bits of Garpy still in the corner of the screen, but his positioning was just so perfect, so sneaky, that Avec just had nowhere to look.
Well, we have the chance now. It's 1-1, and both of these players need points. We're going into our final map. How do we think this is going to go?
I mean, I'm going to stay with my prediction from earlier. I think it is still going to be a 2-1 in the end for Avec, but so far Garpy has been putting up one hell of a fight, and it could very easily go both ways as well.
I feel, because normally I worry about Garpy. I feel like, not that fatigue falls in, but we definitely end up, sometimes Garpy's in a situation where it feels like he's just trying to put up that speed. I like it. Thank you very much, Scale Bearer. But Garpy sometimes, it just kind of feels like he stops, like to a degree, giving it his all. I'm trying to find a very polite way of saying that, but sometimes a map will happen and you kind of feel like maybe Garpy's getting a bit frustrated and he's already thinking about the next map before this one's even over. I'm really happy to see that after, obviously it was not one-sided, it was a close loss in map 1, that Garpy's still kind of keeping that level of composure and just played so rock solid in the second map. I think that's actually going to give him a lot of momentum going into this final map here.
And that start might have looked a little bit silly, but it actually was very clever on Garpy's end, because he knew exactly where Avec was setting up with a railgun, and since Scale is a pretty sizable target, he knew that there was a good chance that if he took Mega, he would get shot immediately afterwards. So just by running around in circles, doing a little bit of a spin move, he built himself up some momentum, so that it made it a lot more difficult for Avec to be able to line up that shot.
I love these champion-specific plays. It's almost like these guys have played this game for over 2 years or something.
And right now we're seeing, I think, what many people would have expected on Blood Run, because it is probably the most defendable map in the entire pool. If you're down on frags, it's incredibly difficult to get back into it. So both of these players are extremely reluctant, very careful right now not to be the one to give up the first frag, because they know that that's putting them in such a disadvantageous position.
Back into that back and forward, and we have seen time and time again on Blood Run why that first frag is so important, and there's a reason why these guys are being nice and defensive at the moment. The moment you get that sort of momentum, speaking of which, damage reduction, it is going to beat the dual wield, but is it going to be enough? I'm not sure. Avec going in with the dual wield, but not only with, in that situation, but with, I guess, some of the highest damage he could possibly give. He knows he's going to deal with the bull rush. He knows there's going to be damage reduction there. If we have 2 super nail guns, who cares about a bull rush?
Yeah, because I think it's still the highest DPS weapon in the entire game, so when all of a sudden you get 2 of those at the same time on a target the size of a Scale Bearer, I mean, it's difficult to not do enormous amounts of damage, but Garpy immediately just getting right back into it, doing some LG damage, switching to the rail, and a millisecond before the Mega spawned, he manages to take down Avec and tie things right back up. He's gonna find him once again, switching to the rockets, going for the rush. And he's actually just going to get out of that situation alive. I think he might have been able to clutch away the victory if he stuck around and just used the rockets, but he played it safe rather than sorry.
I almost feel like in the spur of the moment when he popped that bull rush, he was kind of half committed to going in and using it as an offensive tool, but the moment he popped it, he must have just looked at his health and realized that it just wasn't worth his while.
And Avec also had a really good evasive positioning right there on top of that little ledge. If he had jumped down at a certain angle, it would have been almost impossible for Garpy to still be able to hit him with it. So really good play from Avec, and also a smart decision from Garpy not to overcommit and to realize once his initial plan failed that he needed to do something differently. Avek at this point though in full control, got all the major items to his name at this point, and Garpy is sticking into this top area, the top green, just trying to get himself the resources that he needs to make his way back into control.
The BJ is such a good pick into Scalebearer as well in this regard, because if Scalebearer, in terms of combat skill, if he's going to go in for a fight, there's likely going to be a bull rush involved and he wants to kind of try and combo you, right? We saw it in the very first fight that took place. But if you're Avek and you have control, the dual wield, with especially the amount of weapons that he's got access to, it's a great answer for, you know, a pretty big combo that Scalebearer is going to try and apply onto you.
Yeah.
So I don't really think that even close range, Avek's really going to be in too much of a disadvantage in these fights at all.
Yeah, of course, because even though Scalebearer gets that damage reduction when he uses ability, the other player gets a damage boost by pulling out that second gun. And so they'll kind of cancel each other out to a certain extent. And that was a nasty amount of tri-bolt coming out of Avek right there. Garpy still unable to put himself in fighting shape. Look at that stack on Avek. He's really looking for an opening right now because he knows that if something changes, if Garpy lands 1-2 rails, everything changes. Complete flip of control. So he wants to get a frag now.
That's why Garpy's being so defensive, I suppose. He's going to know more than anyone that a close-range fight, although that's going to be Scalebearer's bread and butter, especially on a map like this, it's something he kind of actively wants to avoid until he feels confident in the stack. And, you know, it doesn't take a genius to realize that he's out of control right now, and Avek has consistently had a lot more. He's looking for those bonus shots.
Yeah.
Hits a bit of rocket damage, but not really enough to write home about so far. That said, plenty of time left on this map to make something happen, and this is nice and close. I'm really glad to see it be as close as it is with both these players so desperate to get those points.
Yep. Mega will be going to Avek once again. He's taken pretty much all of them except for the first 2 or 3 at this point. And Garpy is still just holding down that same angle, the same position, hoping for a rail or a nice rocket. Back turned towards Avek, and look at the damage coming out. 1 rail, 2 rails. Avek, he's gonna want to do something with this.
Temporary movement blunder there as well. Garpy, I don't think he was quite able to pick up that small health bubble as he's jumping down, so that's an opportunity to maybe get it back, but there's the jump pad. He's heard it used, and thankfully he's got plenty of rockets to at least spam away, but the more and more he runs away, he's having to give up these massive pickups. However, here comes the fight. Can he win it? Oh no! If he just landed a little bit more rocket damage, then perhaps that would have been a crazy turnaround.
Yeah, that could have absolutely gone the other way as well. Look at the nail gun though. Garpy down to just a sliver of health. Avek, he knows it. He's got the shotgun out. He knows that even if 1 or 2 of these bolts would have connected from the shotgun, he would have gotten the frag. But Garpy managing to stack up rather quickly. Avek getting himself the LG and the Mega. He is the one in the lead right now, and he definitely doesn't want to give this up.
That's absolutely going to be a feels bad moment for Garpy. That fight, whilst Avek took it because he absolutely thought he had it in the bag, it very, very nearly wasn't. And with all that work too, if Garpy could have turned that into a 2-1 in his favor, then who knows how things would have turned around. But he's going to press the advantage again because he knows that once more dual wields available. He's not going to pull the trigger just yet.
Yep.
Because he knows that Garpy has an escape route planned. He's only going to land it. We know it's a bit more guaranteed. Here comes that heavy once more just to steal away. And once more keeping Garpy horrifically out of control.
Yeah, excellent control from Avek right now. 3 minutes left on the clock. This is starting to look a little bit difficult for Garpy, even though he still has the time, and he knows all he needs is 1 good fight. 1 single situation going his way. Look at that rocket though, missing his face by an inch. And Avek is trying to read his opponent, is hoping that the scale is just going to jump out of this teleporter. Garpy's thinking about it. He's still down there in the blood pool.
The longer he wastes time doing that, though, and trying to make his mind up, he's given up even more control. And right now, it's not a game about Avek trying to be aggressive and using his stack for, you know, aggressive purposes anymore. I have, 2.5 minutes left. I've got the frag difference. I've got my dual wield ready. I've clearly established that when these fights are happening, I'm coming off better.
Yep.
He can just be as defensive as he wants now. And Blood Run, it is a notoriously defensive map. You can be crazy, crazy defensive on this.
Yeah, very true. And of course, his ability is one that helps him out a lot there as well. If Garpy would get the jump on him, he can still very quickly pull out that second gun, increase his damage by quite a lot, and even push his opponent back, put a lot of distance in between between the both of them. So he's holding on to his ability until the need arises for him to use it. And so far, Garpy has really not been able to do much. Good read, an excellent rocket coming out of Avek, and that's gonna be so bad for Garpy because now he needs to go all the way back to the drawing board and stack up on health. And Avek knows this. He knows exactly where Garpy's going for those health bubbles.
Because I think in many ways, Garpy may not have had much of a choice, you know, because he either goes left or right. There's going to be a small health bubble either way, but is it going to be enough to really put him in a situation where he feels like he can fight consistently? Now Garpy stuck between a rock and a hard place. That missed rail is going to give Garpy an inch of breathing room, but even at this point, is that enough? Avek, he's going to need to get a little bit more rocket so far, but obviously that's why he's on the way to it at the moment, but if you're Garpy in this situation, what do you do? It feels like the world's against you at this stage.
Yeah, we're slowly and steadily getting to the point where Garpy has to force the situation and not just wait for one to arise, but at some point he will have to just say, you know what, I have to take it. Clock is running out, I have to forge a fight for myself, no matter if it's beneficial or not. And that's why we're switching to Garpy's point of view right now. Let's see what he's up to, what he can still do with the last 50 seconds.
Avek's going to have the teleporters as his best friend, I think. He's got one of those defensive rockets, and Garpy's taken tons of damage. Even trying to be a little bit interesting with just the forward movement, you know. There's always the chance that maybe a different champion messes up where your rockets land, but I think a little bit of just try it if it works at this stage. He hasn't got a lot of time, 30 seconds in fact, and this map's going to be over, and Avek gets a very, very important win indeed.
Garpy, 20 seconds left. It all comes down to this, and he's actually going to find his opponent, pushing him up into the air. Rockets will miss, and Avek gets away. One direct rocket would have gotten him the frag and tied things up, but he just misses the shot at the worst possible time. But here we go. He's got another opportunity, and he gets it! But the trade!
I cannot believe the trade at the last second. Poor old Garpy finally has just a small opportunity to win, and it's snatched away at the last second. That's going to be a 2-1 to Avek, but I feel like that was just the only way you can explain the rockets in that final map for Garpy was just unfortunate. There were two separate fights where if he just hit a little bit more rocket damage, or just one rocket to hit its mark a bit better, then we would have seen that second fight, or the third fight technically, would have been better, and that final fight as well. And then, you know, who knows what would have happened at that stage. I guess shoulda, woulda, coulda. Avek just playing inches better, handling the matchup well, really not getting bullied by that bull rush in any way, shape or form, and just being in control for almost the entirety of the map.
And still such a close match in the end, because like you said, that really could have gone either way. And I feel like, all things considered, Garpy's moves at the very end, the two fights that he did take, were actually really good situations for him. So he did an excellent job at putting himself in the right position at the right time. Yeah, here we go. He still bounces him up, 75 damage, but then the rockets, of course, shooting up to someone, so difficult to do. Here we see it actually from Avek's point of view, 52 points of health. That's what he was left with at the end. And here we go, the final engagement. Chasing him down, and then the trade out of the teleporter. Yeah, unfortunate.
I mean, that was just the moment where, and even before that, where, you know, Garpy just needed that one extra rocket, and it's we're quite late on now in the QPR, right? And I think that they are the kind of frags that will start to haunt you over time, because Garpy's looking a little bit worse for wear in terms of points in the overall standings, especially the regional standings as well, and those kind of fights that just, you know, one click a little bit more to one side of a direction, you know, you have really, I guess, you can't help but look back and go, well, what would that one frag have meant for me? And it's kind of, I guess, the sad part of Quake Pro League, where now we're starting to reach like really, really pivotal weeks with how much points players are earning, and how some of these wins and losses are quite literally a matter of like one frag. Hindsight is something you can't avoid. You're going to look back at those moments and just have bad dreams about what you could have done differently.
And I honestly don't even know if Avek himself is going to be that happy with the outcome, because just one more map that he could have won, and it was a close map in the end, that would have given or doubled his points in the end. Now he's walking away with 4 points on the ranking, but he could have gotten 8 instead. And looking at how close things are with Sparty and a little bit higher up Toxic as well, I mean, these are the things, like you said, they might come back and haunt him, even though he won this match.
Yeah, and that second map was just immaculately played by Garpy as well, right? Where it's like you look back and think, well, if it was a 3-0, it would have been good. But then again, he played like so damn good. So can you even be mad about it, I suppose? But I guess we're going to have a lot of theory crafting and a lot of hindsight. It's what we do, right? That's what we're here for, the master of hindsight. We have the X-ray and everything.
Absolutely.
But yeah, thanks for watching so far. This is Quake Pro League week number 8. We're going to go for a quick break and set up more matches. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.